Financial Independence Retire Early, also known as FIRE, is a movement devoted to extreme saving and investing in the present so that a person can retire much earlier than the traditional retirement age of 65. The FIRE movement prioritizes saving and investing 50 to 70% of a person's income, if not more, to ensure that early retirement is possible. In this episode, I am breaking down the FIRE movement in detail and sharing why it doesn't work for me or my dream life. My goal is to give you more context on the movement, along with my rationale for just taking a softer approach in the present. And even if that means it's at the expense of an earlier retirement for me. So let me spend some time actually explaining the FIRE movement and what it looks like. So the followers of the FIRE movement essentially dedicate a majority of their income to savings. And when I say savings, I mean investing it in a retirement portfolio or even a general brokerage account, right? So they take a lot of their income and instead of putting it in a bank account or spending it, they put it in an investment account, whether that is a 401k or just a regular investment account. But essentially, followers of the FIRE movement hope to be able to quit their jobs and live solely off of small withdrawals from their portfolio decades before they reach age 65. So this movement has actually become very popular with millennials. And here's kind of the approach they take. So they maintain an extreme savings lifestyle while they're in the workforce. So they are not traveling, they are not spending their money on anything that's non-essential. They are keeping their expenses as low as possible, even if that means like living with parents. From there, they invest up to 70% of their income, if not more. And then when their investments hit 25 times their annual expenses, they quit their jobs and retire altogether. From there, they follow the 4% withdrawal rule. So to cover their living expenses after retiring at a young age, they withdraw 4% of their portfolio annually. So that could be just like one lump sum withdrawal at the start of the year, or it can be broken up into withdrawals throughout the year. But the goal is 4%. And depending on how much they actually need to live on annually, this may require some extreme discipline and minimalism on a daily basis. I do want to add that the 4% rule is just a general guideline for retiring in 30 years. It's not a one-size-fits-all percentage. Now, I previously mentioned that when their investments hit 25 times their annual expenses, they quit their day jobs or retire altogether. So I want to spend a little bit more time here talking about this rule of 25. So the rule of 25 says that you need to save 25 times your annual expenses to retire. And to get this number, first, you multiply your monthly expenses by 12 to figure out your annual expense number. Then you multiply that annual expense amount by 25 to get your FIRE number, or essentially the amount you'll need to retire. So let's kind of run through this with some numbers. If your monthly expenses are $5,000, you multiply that by 12 to get an annual expense amount of $60,000. So $60,000 is your annual expense number. Then you multiply that by 25 to get your FIRE number. So to assume that $5,000 in monthly expenses times 12, your annual number is $60,000. Multiply that by 25, and you'll have a FIRE number of $1.5 million. So if we're thinking about the FIRE approach, someone who has annual expenses of $60,000 would continue working, investing, extreme savings and minimalism until they hit 1.5 million in their investment account. So once they have their FIRE number, they save and invest as much as possible in the present, And instead of, letting growth compound over time, they do everything as much as possible in the present to hit that number as quickly as possible so that they can retire. So, wrapping all of that up, how the FIRE movement essentially works is figuring out what you'll need to have on an annual basis, whatever that amount is. So basically your expenses times that by 25, whatever number that comes out to be, that is essentially your FIRE number. So you would want to grind, keep your expenses so low, save, live a minimalistic lifestyle as hard as you can to hit that number as quickly as you can so that you can quit your day job and essentially retire. So that's how the FIRE movement works. I do want to share that there are a couple of FIRE variations. So there's something called Fat FIRE, Lean FIRE, and Barista FIRE. So let me kind of break down each of those. Fat FIRE is for the individual with a 9-to-5 job who aims to essentially save significantly more than the average worker, but they don't want to reduce their current standard of living. So basically, they still want to retire early. They still need to go through the process of figuring out that number, but they don't want to reduce their expenses or their standard of living in the present. So maybe they still want an iced coffee, or maybe they still want to travel, but they're also focused on FIRE. For this particular variation to work, the person following Fat FIRE generally needs to take an extremely high salary. So they need to make a lot of money so that they can be aggressive with their savings and investment strategies for this to work. So this is ideal for someone making multiple six figures who wants to retire early, but also wants to maintain sort of their current standard of living. The next variation is Lean FIRE. So someone following the Lean FIRE movement is someone who is dedicated to minimalist living and extreme savings, which this requires a much more restricted lifestyle. Many Lean FIRE followers live on $25,000 or less per year. So that is not much. That's like $2,000 a month in expenses and spending. Very lean, but they put as much as they can towards investing so that they can retire when they want to. And then finally, Barista FIRE. The follower of Barista FIRE wants to kind of exist between Fat FIRE and Lean FIRE. So they, quit their traditional 9-to-5 job and use a combination of part-time work and savings to live a more than minimalist lifestyle. So they may go aggressive, Lean FIRE, hit that kind of number they want to have, but instead of retiring and maintaining this very lean lifestyle, they may take a part-time job or have a side hustle so they can have some extra money coming in so that they can still kind of enjoy their current standard of living or increase their standard of living. So it's a little bit of a mix of both fat and lean FIRE. Now, something I really want to spend some time talking about here is compounding growth. So you'll notice in everything I've explained up until this point, followers of the FIRE movement are investing their money. And the reason for that is because investing is what's going to give you compounding growth. It's going to have one of the best returns on your money than any other option. Okay, so let's talk about this. Because of inflation, meaning the cost of living and the cost of goods just going up over time, physical cash saved in a bank account that doesn't really produce any type of interest, or at least not much interest, is not going to be enough to sustain you for the next 40 years. So first off, you're not really making any money on that money that's sitting in a bank account. Therefore, there really is no compounding growth. Second, if you're not earning at least 3%, which is typically the percent of inflation, 2 to 3%, if you're not at least making that, you're not even keeping up with the rising cost of living. So whether you plan to follow FIRE or not, that's something I want you to be mindful of. You absolutely need to be putting your money or putting, some form of your savings in a investment account, in a retirement account that is invested so that you can take advantage of that compounding growth. So saving and investing in tax-advantaged retirement accounts can help you significantly because of that compounding interest and growth. So IRAs and 401ks are accounts that you can use to invest for retirement. Roth IRAs require you to pay the taxes up front. So meaning when you contribute to a Roth IRA, you have already paid taxes on that money. So the benefit of that is your investments grow tax-free. So after 25 years, if you are ready to retire and pull that money out of your Roth IRA, you're not going to be taxed on it. You've already paid your taxes, you paid your dues, and you can essentially make qualified withdrawals completely tax-free in retirement. Traditional IRAs, on the flip side, and most 401ks are pre-tax. So you contribute pre-tax money that has not been taxed. So sure, you're putting essentially more money in there in the present. And as that grows over time, when you're ready to take that money out, you're going to be paying taxes on the money you take out. So what I tell my clients is to think about, what do you think your life is going to look like when you're ready to retire? Are you still going to be making money because you have rental properties or a business? Or are you just going to be chilling? Like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to work. I don't need anything. If you expect your income to be higher in retirement, or you expect to be making more money in retirement, then it makes sense to pay the taxes now, right? Like, just get it over and done with so that no matter how much money you're making, you can pull that retirement money tax-free. If on the flip side, you think in retirement, I'm not really going to be working, I'm not going to be making all this kind of money, then it makes sense to pay the taxes then when you're in a lower income tax bracket. So you really do need to think about what will work best for you and your life. And I know retirement may be very, very far in the future for you, but think about just your life now. Like for me, I know I'll probably always have my fingers in something. I know I want to be in real estate. So it just makes sense for me to pay the taxes now and contribute to a Roth plan. Another thing that I think I should call out is that IRAs and 401ks have annual contribution limits. So it may take you a while to actually reach that limit, but once you've hit the limit, the IRS will not let you add any more to that retirement investment account for the year. So from there, your next step would be to invest as much as possible in a general brokerage account. And I do want to say that when you take money out of your general brokerage account, you're going to pay taxes. Like, there's no tax advantage benefit to that, but that's okay. You've already maxed out the IRA and 401k. So it is what it is. We talk more about investing in episode 107. I had Mark Russell from Better Wallet on the show. I'll link to that in the show notes if you want to learn more about the topic. And then the final thing I just want to say on all of this is, I know people have a fear of investing in the stock market because stock market crashes and this, that, and the third. But historically, over the course of time, the stock market averages about a 10% return. You are not going to find that anywhere else. Maybe real estate, but that's almost like a whole different ballgame. So investing in the stock market is an absolute must. And when the market goes down, because it will, it's going to go up, it's going to go down over the course of time, FIRE followers, or anyone for that matter who is investing, just need to ride it out, okay? Ride the ups and downs. We don't need to worry about that money until it's time to actually use it. So the compounding growth is unmatched when it comes to investing. Okay, I have broken down the FIRE movement. I have talked a little bit about the power of investing and compounding growth. Now I want to get into why the FIRE movement is too extreme for me. And before I kind of get into my reasons, let me just say that I have been saving for retirement since my first job out of college, and I was 21, 22 at the time. It was probably one of the very few things I did right with my money back then, but I did it. And because of that, my investments are projected to give me over $1 million by the time I retire. This is the traditional way of doing things, and it can work just fine. Just because I'm not following FIRE doesn't mean I'm not saving for my retirement. Just because someone who is not participating in the FIRE movement doesn't mean that they're not thinking about their retirement. There are other ways of saving for retirement that maybe aren't as extreme. But the first reason why FIRE is too extreme for me is because of my personal and business expenses. There is no way I could get my personal expenses down to 30%, at least not right now. I still have a mortgage, so that alone pushes me out. I would need to earn a higher salary, and that's not really where I'm at right now with what I have going on in my business. And sure, I could go out and get a corporate high-paying salary job, but that is not what I want for my life right now. I worked really hard to get myself to be in a position to run City Girl Savings full time. So FIRE wouldn't work for me because it's not in line with my dream life ultimately. The next reason why FIRE is too extreme for me is because I want to enjoy my life in the present. My dad died at 51. My mom died at 69, and they both worked extremely hard throughout their lives to obtain what they obtained, but I don't feel like they got the time to enjoy it. They were too young when they passed to really enjoy the fruits of their labor, and I don't want that to be the case for me. I want to enjoy my life in the present. Obviously, I'm a money coach, a budget coach. I want to do it responsibly, right? Like I want to budget for the things I love. I want to control my spending. I want to do all the things that I help other women do. But there is a way to enjoy your life on a budget. There is a way to enjoy your life and still reach your money goals. And FIRE doesn't really let you do that. So while I am currently saving for my future and my retirement, I do want to enjoy my life in the present, because what if I don't make it to retirement? What if I'm incapacitated? What if something comes up and I'm just wiped out financially? I think for me, enjoying my present in moderation, obviously, is much more important than having more money faster for my future. Plus, my budget non-negotiables have already been established, and depriving myself of travel, of iced coffees, of my lash extensions, and my City Girl Savings office would make for a miserable time while working towards FIRE. It's just not in the cards for me. And the final reason why FIRE is too extreme for me is I don't think it's necessary. I think the traditional way of securing the retirement bag is doing just fine. You know, of course, people need to make sure they start early, but for me at least, I did. So if I keep on my current trajectory, I will be okay. Now, if I wasn't on the trajectory of retiring comfortably, I would likely do some extremely light variation of FIRE. You know, definitely not as extreme, but I would absolutely prioritize getting as much invested for retirement as possible. I think if someone is, starting to contribute to their retirement plan in their early 20s and they stay consistent with it over the course of time, they don't need to do FIRE. They'll have a good amount of money when it's time to retire. But the older a person gets and the longer they put off contributing to a retirement plan, to an investment plan, the less they're going to have, and therefore things need to change. But I'm not saying FIRE is the option. I also want to just say that while FIRE doesn't work for me, if it works for anyone who's listening or anyone who's not listening, kudos to you, kudos to them. Like, it takes an extreme level of discipline and sacrifice to implement something like FIRE, and I have a lot of respect for people who can do that. So if you're implementing FIRE, kudos to you. It's no joke, and I have no doubt that your future self will appreciate all of the benefits that you are sacrificing for your present self. For me, it's not ideal, and that's okay. There's no one right way to do anything. I think the most important thing that we should all keep in mind is that we're all saving for our future, even if it means enjoying ourselves in moderation in the present or not.